Guys.
Okay, so there's been quite a bit of movement in the group. I see Ed and Peter have joined Brian and Cherie, so congrats, guys.
Thank you.
It's always nice when you're working as part of a team instead of on your own. Here's Brian
Exactly.
now. Morning, Brian.
Morning. Sorry about being late.
No, it's fine. You forgive it. I was just congratulating you guys on your team getting bigger and everyone joining us. Just saying it's much easier being part of a team than working on your own as a lone ranger. So good luck with that, guys. I'm sure it's going to go really well.
Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Sorry for being late.
No problem. Okay, so yeah, I can't believe how this year's flying by. I had to sit and think about what we're going to chat about this morning. And I had a chat with Mary last week and yesterday about processes within what we do in our business around lifestyle planning. So I actually just thought it was probably a really good idea. This is something that we visit probably every year, but I think because there are new people joining the group constantly, and also because I think it's not something that we ever quite master. It's something that's kind of always in progress, always changing and trying to get better. Is just to chat about processes that we use in our business. What I've offered Mary as well, and to anyone else who wants to be part of it, is to set up a session outside of this where I'll take whoever wants through the process that we use at Client Care on basically onboarding and then reviewing. Many of you, I think, have been through it already. We've got PowerPoint presentations that we work through and everything. There's no right or wrong way. It's just, 13 years ago, I put this in place. And after I've been in the industry for almost 35 years, and it made a huge difference to how I operate and how we operate as a business. And it's difficult to think of how we worked beforehand. And I never wanted to have a process because I saw it as something that was restrictive. That would kind of hold me back and kind of treating every client the same, whereas every client is different. But I realized very quickly after putting in place that it's quite the opposite. It actually does it allows the business to operate as a business instead of just someone walking to your office and you sit down and you talk about what they want to talk about, which means eventually they end up controlling the meeting. It's like you walk into a doctor's rooms and you hogging the conversation. And I know a lot of people think that we should let clients speak, and indeed we should, but I think we do need to be able to kind of steer the direction in which that happens, because if clients knew everything, they wouldn't be coming to us in the first place. Not that we know everything, but we generally know a lot more than they know. So having a process really worked very well in our business. And as I said, it's something that we've refined and continue to refine on an ongoing basis. So after this on the WhatsApp group, I'll just put out requests to anyone who might want to go through the process with us, and then we'll set something up in the next few weeks. So I think let's first start off with Brian. I'm going to pick on you always. Ben, I'm going to pick on you. I think, Brian, you were in the industry before, Ben also kind of before, and maybe had a very loose sort of process or had no process at all. And just maybe share the experience of what it was like before and what it was after. As I said, no process is perfect. No two are going to look the same. We've got to make it our own because, only if we do that are we comfortable in doing that. So, yeah, Brian, if you can start us off, please.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. So several years ago, 2020, I started working on firstly, a formal financial planning process. What I'm using now, what all of our clients go through, even what Peter and Aidan will be using with their clients, that process is very different to what I started off with. But what I felt I needed to have was a formalized sequence of events rather, that all clients go through. So it's not a case of every client gets the same thing, but in principle, every client goes through the same process, and depending on their priorities, they will maybe go through different stages of our process at different times. So what Sharice and I do is we kind of triage clients. So we start with our process, but we might not do life planning until we've taken care of risk planning, for example. Now, what happens with the process is it's actually something very near and dear to me because it's the way we work. So it's kind of like the freedom way of doing things. And it's something we constantly work on and refine. Now, all of the thinking we do about our planning revolves around this process and what steps to include, what steps to exclude. So it forces you to be extremely intentional about what you do and who you do it for, because this is something you actually commoditize. So your financial planning process is like a product, and you sell it hard to people. And so the product, this process, is the outcome. It's a bridge between where they are now and where they're going to be in the future. And so that bridge is the process that we follow with clients. So the financial planning process for our onboarding clients is similar in structure for everybody. And then every year, our clients follow an annual cycle, for lack of a better word, and that's the same for everybody. Now, if you have those parameters in place, then it gives you the freedom to think long and hard about what you do in the blocks. So if you're working between these guardrails, you don't have to think now what comes next. Now I can make this experience within this parameter here as rich as possible for myself and the client. I don't have to think about what to do next. I can switch my brain off because I know what's coming next, because we've mapped out this process. And so it's proving to be valuable right now with Peter and Aidan joining, because it's all mapped out for them. There's no mystery. This is how we do things at Freedom, and now you will take clients through this process. But if you have a documented process that you follow as a planner, the second thing is to incorporate it into whatever system you utilize, your workflow system, your CRM system, so that you can onboard at scale. Because what we're finding with Sharice and I mean, we're currently onboarding about 12 families, and I think Peter and Aidan this month start, over the next 2 or 3 months, probably 10 or so families from scratch. Now, if you're dealing with that volume, you can't wing it. You got to know where you are in the process with everybody. And so if you have this repeatable process, repeatable just means it's something you can copy and paste and you can scale. Now, everyone's different and everyone gets a certain amount of special, sauce, special flavor in that planning process. So we don't take on hundreds of clients, but that just removes the mystery from what is about to happen with that person. You can manage your expectations workflow-wise. And what that process did for us is it helps us, Sharice and myself, initially determine what to do with our time. Because if we know every client is going to go through this meeting, it's all about you meeting, then we're going to do facts and figures, then we're going to do life planning, then we're going to do legacy planning, then we're going to do disability planning. We space them 2 weeks apart. Look, I know exactly how long the process will take us. It's going to take us 3 months. Then we get to product implementation. That's the third hat, the financial advice hat, and then that'll take us however long. So now you can map out the journey for a client. You've got a time, you can work out a value for that process. You can charge for it if you want to separately, or I must earn 50K a year from a client to make all of this worthwhile. So it starts with what you do, and then secondly, for me, you need to understand who you're doing it for. It'll be very different for someone who's 25 versus someone who's 55. And so you probably can't have too many iterations of what your firm does. You probably have to apply your trade in a certain segment or category. So I think the most frank way to say it is you're not taking it seriously until you've got a process that you can call Brian's process or Dirk's process or, Peter's process or Maria's process. Then that's something that you can work on and constantly evolve. And so the value we have seen in our business is that it's easy to roll out, it's easy to employ people, and they can plug into that kind of way of being and working. And then secondly, to attach that or coordinate that with whatever sort of workflow or CRM system you're using. so that it pushes the staff along and it pushes the process along, and it doesn't get bogged down in indecision and indifference. You know exactly what's coming next, and that's quite empowering.
Yeah, no, that's great, Brian. What I found as well, it helps you find out very quickly who's serious and who's not serious. Because if someone's not prepared to sit through, hours at these 3 or 4 meetings, if they're not prepared to give you that time, and then also during that period when you start collecting information, if they're not doing their homework, then history tells you it's much better to cut your losses early on than to try and push through. Yeah. Okay, Ben.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, so I started in the industry. I guess, like a lot of us young guys, we get our qualification, or we started the qualification, and we came with lots of energy and enthusiasm. And I started in a practice, and it dealt a lot with a medical students. So we'd go to the medical school, and because we all knew that they were going to start jobs next year, the 6 years, they were all going to get a job. We knew how much they were going to earn, and so that they all needed some policies. So when I first started, the rule of the game was 3-2-1. 3 million life cover, 2 million disability, 1 million severe illness. That was the process. 3-2-1. That's all you had to do, and sign here and press hard. And so that was the process. So it was a very easy process to follow. But as you know, this doesn't really get to any hearts of the issues, and it doesn't really deal with what the clients are going through and things. So I was still studying then at the time, and then obviously I moved around and got into some different companies and learned some better processes. And I think Brian has spoken a lot about the importance of having good process. So I'm not going to rehash all what he said, but I mean it's completely different between going to a client and I guess selling them something because you're trying to eat at the end of the day, and something that I might not even need, compared to taking them on a journey and through a process and finding the heart issues. And what I have found is that when I, going through the process with these clients, because they've gone through a process, you've got a plan in place, they stick with you, and they'll come to you for almost anything, which is almost you want to be is their, advisor. They're coming to say, should I buy this car? Or what is this? What does a balloon payment mean? It means that there's trust that you've built with them. You've built a relationship with them, and those clients are not gonna come away when some other slick salesman comes around and wants to sell them some fancy policy, because they've got a lot of also, I say, emotional trust with you, because they've unpacked a lot with you as well. They've shared their dreams, they've shared their things. And it's also when you know them, I'll say intimately is not quite the right word, but you know what I mean, at that deeper level, it's so much easier also to have a conversation, because they might, and I have one client who she enjoys spending her money and she enjoys clothes and she knows that she likes spending things. So then I say, okay, cool. Do you want to then go buy these clothes, or do you really want to go on that 30th birthday? You said you wanted to go to Paris. And then she thinks about it. It's like, oh, actually, actually, I do want to go to Paris. And so actually, I won't withdraw any money. Let's see what I can do. And again, it's because you've unpacked this. You've got that relationship. Now, when she goes to Paris, she's going to have this amazing time, and it's going to be then, back thanks to you. Again, that you've got that emotional connection. So yeah, and then I'll just add to what Brian said. The important thing of the process, I think, when you're in the meeting, each meeting will be slightly different because you're unpacking certain things with the clients. But I think on the back end, it's so important to have that process nailed down, because then you can, like you said, you can move things to the next point. You know exactly where you are in the process. You can follow up on things. And if it's all the same, you can then start to maybe automate it. You can start getting things involved, so that you can speed up or do a lot of the heavy lifting on the back end, so that you can spend more time with the client if you know what your process is. If you're trying to make it up each time, you can't put in anything or automate anything, because you're changing it all the time. So that's just another 2 cents. Yes, Brian.
Sorry, Dirk. Ben, you said something there which sparked an idea for me. Was one of the reasons why I wanted to build out a process and document each step is because each time you do it, you might get it a bit better. And each time you deal with a different client, you might do something different. And you're like, that really worked. Now, when you commit like to a process and you constantly involve it, it is the best of you that you're giving the client. But if every time you kind of make it up, then what's going to happen is you're firstly going to be led by the client, which is not the way it works, as Dirk said, because you're going to go where they think that you should go. And secondly, you're going to forget about that one thing you did or the one question you asked or that one exercise you did with that one client that was so valuable and you never did it to anyone else. And I think the main reason why you might not do it is either you don't think that this business is a business. And that's the first thing. Meantime, the business has to be sellable. So you have to document everything. Well, the second thing is you might not value like how important what you're doing is. And so once you get over those problems and you realize you have to document it, it's a recipe for success. That's kind of what your process is. It's step A to Z to help a client get to success. So when you don't write it down, you don't have it somewhere, even on an Excel spreadsheet, you miss things. And that's actually to the detriment of the client. And then secondly, you just wander down an aimless path, not knowing where you're supposed to be going.
Yeah, I think, and another thing is the beauty of having a process is, our work it's not easy. We've got to be okay every day. We've got to be on. It doesn't matter what's happening at home. Doesn't matter if you've been ill or there's something going on in your personal life. When we sit down, we've got to be like perfect every day. And having a process kind of helps that, because those days where you are maybe a little off your best, as long as you stick to the process, you're still going to be doing better than 90% of advisors out there, because you know this thing works. Another thing is also, so Brian, because I like what you said, but I don't want to scare people off who are maybe in one-man businesses or smaller. When Brian spoke about then linking it into your CRM, I mean, that's great. But if you don't have that, that's like if you a small one-person business, one advisor, you're on your own, don't worry about that now. The main thing is to get a process in place. It doesn't have to be highly sophisticated or everything. It can be really, really simple. But just when you get your mindset around, like, this is what we do for every single client, whether they got no money or however much money, doesn't actually matter. Another thing is also for new advisors coming in, and I've seen it, and I think Ben and Alex can attest to this. I can speak for them because I know they've come into the business. Is when you start off, you maybe you're not that confident, especially when you are, and just blindly following a process. Eventually, it does help you build that confidence. So, like maybe for someone like you might be trying something like this, even though you've been doing this job for a long time. But when you start something like this, you've really got to stick with it, because after a while, you will kind of make it your own. You'll work out which questions work better for you, but it does help, I think, you young advisors, if they can come into the process and just kind of blindly stick to that, it will give you more confidence and will help you get better at what that is. And you've got to remember that simply by having a process, you again, I honestly believe you're better than 90% of advisors out there. It doesn't matter how many years of experience they've got. If they don't have a process, when a client comes to you, they're going to feel that they're working with a business, as opposed to just to like some freelancer out there who's ultimately going to try and sell them a policy or get hold of their money or whatever. So I really think, you've got to think about that client's experience. I've also found that, and I see this a lot with older advisors where they've never got time. They don't have time for a forum like this. They don't have time for this. They don't have time for that. I mean, then they're just not managing their time properly. For me, especially at the beginning of a relationship with a client, the more time we can spend with them, the better. So if your 3 meetings ends up becoming 5 or 6 meetings, I think it's fantastic, because the more time you spend with them, every time you're doing that, you're reinforcing your message, you're reinforcing your values and to how you work, and you're able to make that relationship stronger. It's like typical, the foundation of a building. The stronger that foundation is, the more sturdy that relationship is going to be down the line. So yes, it takes more time doing it this way, but you are building better relationships. And what that leads to is down the line, it's just, I mean, I can tell you how we have clients now who we've been working with for years. They've been through the process. The process continues with our reviews and everything. And they're literally phoning up and saying, you know, we got paid a dividend. Where do I put the money? And it just, and it's like, I promise you, it really, really serves you down the line, because I mean, we got 2 clients now, and I think I mentioned it maybe, but I wrote an article, and they got a client who walked in to a meeting with Alex and I 2 weeks ago, carrying a crane, we call it a walking stick. He had a back op a few years ago, but he broke the news that he needed another op, plus he had other surgery needed as well, and both of these were like 6-month recoveries. And his plan was to retire in 2 years' time. And I said, stuff this, I can't see myself working through all this. Can I retire? So anyway, we sent him away, got him to update his budget, we updated all the numbers. And this guy, when he met with us last week, he can retire. And in fact, he's way ahead of his plan from where he was when he started working with us 8 years ago. So 8 years ago, he had 2 million rand in savings. He's now got 12 million rand. And all of that is the focus of having a plan. Yes, the business has done well, and then his business shares are worth probably another 10 million. But it's because we followed that process. And we had an instance with this client where he got a bit irritated, and you know, I just said to him, look, if you don't want to work with us, it's fine, you can go. Like, if you want to go to Investec, go. It's not a problem. But because I honestly believe, because we had run that whole relationship like a business, because of our process, he stuck with us, or he kind of asked if he could remain, which was great. And now that guy is loyal, like you cannot believe, because all he knows is, he knows where he was 8 years ago. And again, just off the subject, but I don't think we show clients enough. We actually need to go, this is where you were when you met us. This is where you are now. And if you look at it, you'll probably find many instances where the client situation has vastly improved, and they are way ahead of their planning than they thought they would be when we initially met them. And I honestly believe that just comes through the process, which doesn't end just with the initial onboarding, but it continues, as Brian says, down the line. What I've learned as well is that some clients jump in much easier than others. So some will just like open up their hearts and tell you all the gump and all the bad news and the good news and everything. Others are a little bit more guarded, and that's absolutely fine. They'll come through down the line, but they will all eventually come through at some time. So we've also learned that from when we start working with the clients, the time to redo the whole plan is probably around 3 years, because they've worked with it. You've got them to, you know, they've been through a couple of reviews with you. The plan's taking shape. And after about 3 years, often there's stuff that has fundamentally changed in their lives, or their view on either retirement or their hobbies or whatever they want to do has changed. So yeah, anyone else want to share anything or any battles that you've had around trying to put a process in place? Freddie, have you guys got something similar there in Namibia that you take your clients through? Sorry, Dylan, I'll come to you now.
Hi, Dirk. No, not really. Well, you know, the main stuff you follow, that financial planning process, that steps of review. So yeah, I sort of over the time tried to build my own you know, process and stuff, but yeah, not really. So on this side of the border of the Orange River, I would almost say it's still back on. Yeah, the guys are so we've got the big Sanlams, which is still a big advisor with tied agents, and then a bit of mutual as well. So unfortunately, there's a lot of product pushing. So yeah, which is not the nicest to do. It's not the place where we are. So So we've got a bit of a different process that we go through with the clients. But yeah, so I see I still have got a lot to work on to put in a specific structure, because I think I can see. So because as you mentioned earlier, a lot of times we're not just advisors, we're sometimes psychologists as well. Like yesterday I had a client that literally came and see me about he's in so much debt, because his partner, she can't work with money, and those are the type of things, so but I think having a process, we do have a bit of a process, which is actually very short and simplistic. I've got everything on a one-pager that I like to talk to clients, because I see if you've got too much information, they tend to sort of not be interested. But yeah, that's so the process we have is something that we've built ourselves. But yeah, obviously it needs anything I can change and I can add, and all the information I get from you guys are things that really helps, and I will go back and refine the process a bit. But yeah, I think one of our biggest challenges, and I think that's how I actually met Derek as well, is maybe if I can ask, what type of CRM management are you guys using? Maybe because currently we come from the Sanlam brand almost, and most of the CRMs that we use or that we can use, everything is South African based. So the support and everything and maybe is not very well. So we're using sort of our own document system. So maybe if I can ask if guys can give me an idea, or just what are you guys using?
Freddie, can we hang on with that, because we are going to discuss that.
Okay.
So the second part of it, we're going to discuss the AI or the tech that we're using, and then also how we're using AI. Okay. Thanks, Freddie. Dylan, I see you got your hand up.
Cool. Sorry, I've been traveling a bit, so I haven't had my camera on. But it's funny, going back to this topic, when I started, it was really difficult because you get pushed into, let's say, a CRM, and you end up doing analysis for a client, and that's what you get taught. But the business I was in didn't really have a process. So I remember I sat in my first client meeting in front of the clients. I knew what I needed to tell them, but I just didn't even know how to talk to them properly. I didn't know what open-ended questions to ask. I didn't know how to get them talking. I didn't know how to get them engaged in the meeting, but I knew how to solve all of their financial problems. And then I quickly realized I was only doing half the job. So then I think that was right at the start, and I'll never forget that day. It's quite a fond memory of mine. But coming into a second business now, where there also wasn't much of a process, I would say I ended up building my own one, and the first mistake I made was making it too rigid. So what I realized was I was getting awesome referrals from good clients of mine, and I would meet with brand new clients. They would maybe have dealt with 2 or 3 or 4 advisors before, and they actually had a very burning and urgent need. They needed to be solved. And I still tried to push them through my process, and quickly realized that I was completely, maybe even ruining the experience for them, because when you're talking to someone about something completely different, when they have a different expectation, you're actually doing yourselves and them a disservice. So I think making my process a bit more modular was something that helped a lot. So now I'll have like a discovery session. I'll have a specific process for risk and estate planning, and a specific process for investment and retirement planning. If the client has no expectation or isn't sure what financial planning involves, or perhaps they had an advisor who had no structure, I'll then take them through my full process. But I would just say that splitting it up and being more open-minded and fluid, and using it more as a base rather than the law, is definitely what has helped me in the last, let's say, 2 years.
Great, thanks, Dylan. Yeah, I think that does make sense. And I mean, I'm even learning, like where I am now, where dealing with a different type of client, you do have to sometimes address like, you know, the nail in the head first. But I always, and I really honestly believe this, at the end of the day, you've got to get them to go through that basic process, because if they don't, then it's like, in the first few meetings, I won't talk about the money. So I don't even know what they've got. I know for some people it'll sound strange or odd, but I don't know whether they've got 100,000 Rand or 50 million Rand. I really don't know. I could suspect, and sometimes they'll drop hints, but I just find the first few meetings are really getting to know the clients and explain how we work, and to see if we can connect on that basis. But in the first meeting, we do ask, is there anything that is really urgent now? And obviously, if there is, we can then deal with that. But very often you'll also find out that for them it's really, really urgent, but that they need to be asking a whole lot of other questions before they can answer, we can actually solve that problem, because very often that problem is linked to other aspects of the financial plan, of the financial situation. I just find that if in that first meeting you're talking, like if a client says, well, you know, what do I do with my RA, or should I go Coro or Alan Gray or whatever, the minute you start having those discussions, the benefit of a RA versus a tax-free savings account, it's very, very hard to pull the client back, because then you're going into that space where now you're becoming a product expert and you're having that conversation. It's very difficult to bring them back to, or even if they're just talking about fees, for instance. You know, you don't even know what I do. So let me first go through what I do. And part of that process, even in the first meeting, we will talk about fees. And if the way we want to charge isn't acceptable, that's fine. Then we don't even go forward from there. So part of the process of our process is also weeding out people that we don't want to deal with. We've just onboarded brand new clients. He's an engineer, so you know straight away this oak is watching every penny. She was in the corporate world, an accountant, so like they're both pretty analytical, and they arrived with spreadsheets and things. And you know, when we finished off our fourth meeting, I went through it. He was just like, "This is fantastic, unbelievable." And I went back and I said, "Guys, do you understand the fees? Are you comfortable with the fees?" And they absolutely. You know, these are like guys that have found Sean Pesh. You guys know who Sean Pesh is. He wrote that article years ago about the asset management industry in SA. He runs a fund called Ranmore in the UK. I mean, they deal with Sean directly. So now, you know, we're going to be taking over as advisors there. The money will still be there, but they're now going to be paying our fee on top of the fee that they're paying there as well. And they're happy with it. And I promise you, that is because of the whole process that and she arrived with all these spreadsheets, and I said, look, just put that aside. Let's first get to know who you are. So Dylan, I absolutely get it. I mean, sometimes we've got to actually deal with the matter at hand, and we've got to sort that out. But we've got to say, okay, we've done that now. Let's get back into the process. Because I promise you, after 30 odd years down the line, if you are just giving better technical advice than they've got before, or you pushing them into a fund that is maybe better than what they have got currently, you know, it won't be better later on. There'll always be something better. It's not going to be a happy relationship. So it's very important, I believe, if you're building long-term relationships, is to set the grounding up front, that they understand that this is how you're going to work. And if they don't want to, if they want to control everything, my experience is you don't want that person as a client, regardless of how much money they may not have. Someone else had their hand up. Shannon.
You answered what I was going to ask. Thank you.
Sorry?
You answered what I was asking.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's always that challenge, what I find with dealing with a new client, when they have a pressing issue, that you park it and then come back to it. And it's a big challenge for me. It's something I always struggle with.
Yeah, I mean, we had Alex and I recently had a guy who came in, old school mate of mine, and she's retiring. He's one of the security officers who works in Zambia or whatever, you know, an old recce. And she just like brought her fund, and I said, okay, look, guys, we do need to go through the process. Long story short, eventually, we're not dealing with them anymore because they couldn't make the time. Now, it's so, well, you know, we lost a potential client. But the reality is, if they're not prepared to take their retirement that seriously, that they're not prepared to spend a bit of time and for us to find out what they really need, in other words, just shoving them into a product, you really don't want that person as a client, because it's going to backfire down the line where they're going to say, oh, well, that would have been a better product or that. So, I mean, we've got another client also. So we've been dealing with his father for years. I've dealt with his father for many years, but he's got the onset of dementia and is in a wheelchair. He had a stroke. So we've been dealing with the son more, and they've been through up, but he's retiring at the end of May. So we've been able to go through the process quite quickly. Like we schedule those meetings a week after the next, and we meet in them next week, where we'll have it'll be the fourth meeting. We had a coffee meeting with the wife, first meeting, second meeting. The fourth meeting is going to be, that's where you are, and then we can advise them. So I mean, but we've still taken them through the process, and we'll spend more time later on. And where I said I'm doing it differently for some clients here. We've got, in some clients, there are a lot of people who have more money than they need, which is a blessing. Trust me, it's a curse as well. But sometimes we've got to like solve an initial problem, but we still take them through the process. And I promise you, even people with a lot of money, really, because, and often they need it more because they've got all this money, but they don't understand what it means. They've just had their whole life working hard, building all this wealth, but it's kind of meaningless to them, and often they're quite empty. So yeah. Yes, Mary.
I don't mean to pressurize you, but when's the soonest we can do the next, the slides and stuff? Because I desperately want to change the way I'm working.
We can do it next week. This week's a short week and it's completely full up.
Next week's perfect.
Yeah, but if I look at my week next week, probably Thursday.
Cool.
Okay, so
Thanks,
I'll put that on the WhatsApp group and we can set it up then. Okay.
Just let me know separately because I'm not on there.
Do you want me to add you on there?
No.
Okay, guys, any more questions on this before we move on to tech? Okay, great. Yeah, so the tech story, I think that's also something that keeps evolving and keeps changing. And again, I think it's quite personal to what we like to work with and what works for our clients. So yeah, Shannon, I'm going to pick on you first, and we'll kind of work around the room. Maybe just, there's no judgment, there's no right or wrong. It's just like, what CRM are you guys using? What other stuff are you using, either with your clients or within the running of your business?
Our CRM system that we use, or that I use, I'm a one-man band, is Elite Wealth. It's one of the primary reasons why I use it is not for the CRM side, but for the cash flow forecasting. It is really, really detailed, a lot of analysis, a lot of detail there, and that's the primary reason that I use it. In terms of values and that all gets pushed through from the providers, so everything gets updated on a real-time basis. Yeah, but the primary reason why I use it, the FNA is great, and when you talk to the guys at Elite, they turn around and say, "Oh, our FNA is pretty average." They feel it's their weak point. I think the FNA is actually great, but the main priority or the main forte that I use it is for the cash flow planning. To me, it's just leagues beyond anything else that I've worked with. And I've worked with the X plans, I've worked with the AtWorks. Yeah.
Okay, great. And anything else that you use, Asset Map or anything else that you've used?
No. I've looked at Asset Map. I love Asset Map, but again, I like to keep things simple. I would love Elite Wealth to integrate an Asset Map type of interface with their product, and I have spoken to them about it. And that's another nice thing about the guys at Elite Wealth. You can talk to them. They don't just listen to the big corporates; they listen to the smaller guys as well. So yeah, Asset Map is something that I've looked at, but I keep my life fairly simple. This whole AI thing is something that I need to maybe pay a little more attention to, and that's why I'm really looking forward to hearing from some of the youngsters here. I'm a grey-haired guy. I'm kind of old tech.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shannon. Carl, can you share with us, you with Fairbird, can you share what systems you guys use?
Well, currently we are using Xplan, but we had the opportunity to pilot AdviceTech for the last 6 months. So we are at the decision stage, but it's not only us, it's the greater group as well. But what's important for us is just the workflows and getting an efficient way of dishing out specific tasks to specific people in the practice after getting back from a client. That's the biggest goal for us. CRM is sending out communication and essentially just archiving all your record keeping and compliance. But just getting an efficient way of workflows. That's the most important thing. We are using Asset Map as well, but more for a data gathering method of easily getting information from clients, sending out that link. Other than that, AI we are looking at, but personally, I'm not too involved with that at this stage.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Is there I think there's a cash flow planning model in your CRM, is that correct?
In Xplan and Xplan is essentially a shortfall calculator, but AdviceTech has got cash flows, yeah.
Yeah, I want to really, if you don't have a cash flow planning model, then I've said this before, I really don't know how you can do this job. Because it really is, it's fundamental to, I think, everything that we do. So whichever one you use doesn't matter, but yeah, I think that is important.
For the more complicated analysis and especially the cash flows, we are also obviously using integrated wealth planning from Old Mutual Wealth, and that's more for the lifestyle financial planning.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. Freddie, okay, you asked the question, Freddie, so I'm going to ask Brian. You muted, Brian?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot that. Cool, thanks. Okay, so tech stack, it's quite long. So Xplan we use just purely for CRM. We don't use the tools. The tools are shortfall, which is good for selling a policy, not for changing a life. Then we utilize Wealth Integrator. Wealth Integrator is a cash flow planning tool. Then we use Asset Map for product review discussions, just so everyone can see it. Also, we use it for prospect data gathering, just to see how long the piece of string is and how we should quote. Then we utilize in other sorts of tech that's not necessarily, how can I say, doesn't help us plan, but we utilize Fathom AI for all meetings. So every single meeting we ever have at Freedom is recorded. And the summaries on Fathom are second to none. I don't think there's much else that's better out there. And so what you can also do is we ask Fathom, what is the client's real pain point? What is the most important thing about this for them? You know, what is the biggest thing to solve? And it just really cuts to the heart of the issue. In fact, I'll ask that question and take that sentence and put it on a letter for the client in our pitch deck. And And the client will say, oh my gosh, like you get me. So I say, yeah, no, totally, I get you, but my AI does. I don't, I'm a guy, I can't pick up on anything. And so what I will say is, so what we use that is that we also let it draft, for the most part, emails to clients after a meeting with the minutes and the action items. It does that for you. Then what we also utilize is, because we're virtual, it is just going to be things like quickly sign, we use all the time for everything. Then Teams, we've kind of stripped away Zoom now, and last week we decided just to use Teams for all meetings. Teams isn't as bad as it used to be. So it is much easier to use now for people who aren't MS subscribers. I suspect that is the entirety of, or the main thrust of our tech stack. There are other things we use, like to run the practice, like zero accounting and all of that, but I don't think that's part of this conversation.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I heard about Zero yesterday in the meeting. Apparently, it's really good. Dylan, are you still there, bud? Okay, Dylan's obviously driving. Shannon, you got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, Dirk. I just want to ask Brian a question. In terms of using Fathom, so I take it you only do online meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Would Fathom work in a face-to-face environment if it's just recording in the background? Would you know?
I wouldn't know, but I think you would have to have the microphone very close on whatever device to pick up. I suspect people who have face-to-face meetings are going to be hamstrung unless there's a new technology developed to record and transcribe all the meetings. So I think it's going to be we're probably going to go backwards and have to have dictaphones or microphones in the meeting room, because the minute taking of AI, it kills what anyone can do normally. And what I find is when we have these long meetings, hour-and-a-half meetings, 2-hour meetings with clients, where we're asking a lot of questions about their lives, their childhood, the this, the that, what's important to them, their values. Looking down at the paper and writing, I can't, like I said, I'm a guy, I can't do two things at once. And so I will struggle, I'll lose my train of thought. And then I'll start thinking, okay, I better come up with a smart ass question now because I've lost my track. But now I'm just immersed in the conversation and I don't take any notes. If I was in person, I would be a worse planner than I am now. And it's one part of the reason is because of the tools that help enable this relationship. So if I was in person, I would insist that every meeting is recorded. Now you have board meetings where it's recorded by that central mic. It's a lot of money for that dome mic and it's multi-directional. Then you've got to have a transcriber somehow in that, or you've got to play it back after the meeting and play it back to a transcriber, an AI transcriber. The summaries it makes are so much better than what I could make, because that's not my skill. My skill is very different to note-taking, and you don't employ note-takers. I think if you do, you're making too much money. But I think seriously, it's a great thing to have. So I can't fault the AI there. And secondly, their terms and conditions are very strict. They don't sell the data to anyone, or they specify that. They don't use it to train LLMs, and they give you whatever certificate your country needs because they meet all the international ISO standards in terms of security. So, it kind of meets the requirements for me to use in the firm very openly with clients.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, we record all our meetings as well. We have for years already. I used to have one of those pens that you wrote, and now I've got an app that we record everything with, and then obviously online we're using Fathom as well, although mine doesn't work, Ben. Please sort me out. But that's probably a Dirk problem and not a Fathom problem, so I'm a bit like Shannon. One thing I have picked up, so it's really great with, as you say, with doing minutes and all that. One danger of all the stuff is that we're not actually present in the meeting, or whoever is. So we've traditionally always tried to have two people in the meeting. With me moving to St. Francis, that's become a bit more difficult now. So we've tried having someone in the meeting online, but then the next thing, Teams pops up or loses signal, and it can it messes up the meeting a bit, because suddenly, I don't know if the client feels they're being spied on, but it can kind of create problems because tech isn't perfect. But one thing, I've said to our team is you've got to check the minutes that it puts out, because it does get some things wrong. You've got to check it. And also the danger is you still need to listen to those meetings, because otherwise you're not really going to know the client. So it saves a ton load of time. It's really efficient, but the danger of AI is, like, don't ever let yourself be replaced, because we are still needed. Ben, I see you've got your hand up. And Ben, actually, why don't you just do our session as well, because you know what we use. Thanks.
Cool. So Sharon, to answer your question, I've tried Fathom. It doesn't really work so much as in person, but what we do, we still have a lot of in-person meetings. So Dirk normally just uses his phone and stuff and just presses record there, and then you can hear that there's a conversation. So as Brian said, the first thing you got to do is get it transcribed. And so the easiest thing that I've found is I just go into Word and I just go and click transcribe, upload the audio, and it automatically transcribes it for me. The transcription is not great, so I mean it's not going to be a word for word, but for what we use it for, it works well. So obviously your output is only going to be as good as your input when you take it further. So if you want really great output, you're going to have to get better transcription. So what we do then is I then use ChatGPT, and I've created separate GBTs around our specific meetings. So in our initial engagement meeting, I know what our process is, I know what questions will be asked, and it looks for those certain things. I've also built another one that strips out the bio. So it's only like their personal information that will be useful to go back on and saying, oh, their father worked here, like they've got kids here and they got this there, like that kind of stuff. So we've also got that separated. And then we've got, through our goal setting meeting, that it's going to look out for certain things. So I've got, for different meetings, I've got different GPTs that it runs through, and then it creates the minutes. So I know it sounds a bit complicated, but it's not really. So all I literally do is upload a Word document, and then it spits out the minutes. What I do with that, then I've basically got a template. Then before I used to listen to the meetings, I'd have to go and listen for 2 hours of meetings. And when you're trying to do minutes, it takes you 2.5, 3, 4 hours, because it just takes forever trying to listen. You're pressing pause, you're typing, pressing pause, so it does take Now what I do is, because I've got a template for it and it's got the rough idea, I listen to the meeting back at 2 times speed, and then I can just make some small corrections here and there. I know roughly what's happening. I can format it better. And so it's still taking me a half or a quarter of the time to do the minutes, but I've listened to it and I've got really great minutes, if that makes sense. So that's just around the minutes. Does that help, Shannon?
I would like to describe it.
Ben, you want to run through the rest of our text?
So when we were looking, we used to be on Xplan, then we were looking at other CRMs. We thought we wanted a CRM that just did CRM, because there are so many different financial planning tools and whatever. I don't think it's very hard to get a financial planning CRM, that either does a CRM well or does financial planning well. There's never really a great mix. So we looked for something that just did CRM. And so we went with Zoho. And the nice thing about that is that there's about 40 or 50 different apps that actually comes with it. So for that subscription, we've got Zoho CRM, which we built out our CRM. And we can take us through the FICA. We can upload all of our clients' policies and all those things in there as well. We've even got another module for newsletters, so all our newsletters run through Zoho. We've got Zoho Sign, so all our signatures are done through Sign, and then it links back to our CRM. So in that, it's all linking back. We've also got forms. So for example, we do send a client a link, and they fill out their personal details, and then it automatically then updates our CRM, for example. So that we went for that integrated stack, because they're all integrated to each other, and we only wanted it to do CRM. So the only bad thing, if you want to call it like that, is that when we do the financial planning, we just have to manually enter our data into the IWP, because we use IWP for our cash flow planning. But again, that's only once. We're only uploading it once, and then it's there. Then you're just copying and pasting it. So it's not a massive thing. So IWP, and then we also use Asset Map. We use Fathom for online meetings as well. Using ComSpace. We use ChatGPT, like I said. I mean, I even used it to check some emails or write a nice reply or sternly worded email sometimes. So yeah, ChatGPT is very helpful. Like I said, for the minutes, Office 365. I think those are the most of the tech.
Great job. Thanks, Ben. We've used Asset Map as well. Some clients really like it. It is really difficult trying to find a place for all of these things. So I think you've got to kind of play around with what works for you. And also I think what is important is being consistent. So like we've got one client I can think of, he loves the Asset Map and he says, just send me that thingy, you know what he means. But yeah. Marguerite, what CRM system and tech stack are you using?
Okay, so I've just joined WealthHub, so I'm still finding my feet with all the tech. But what I've been exposed to so far is we're using Wealthbox for CRM and task management. Asset Map that I was familiar with, and then we use Portfolio Metrics' Wealth Explorer, also for cash flow planning and investment planning purposes. Yes, we also use Zero, ComSpace. What else was mentioned? Quickly Sign. So it looks like there's quite a bit of overlap between what we're all using. And I think we're all trying to find our feet in terms of what works most effectively in what kind of scenarios.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, you said me, Coral there. Yeah, so you've also made a move. Congratulations. That's great. When did you join them now?
Yes, beginning of March.
Okay, all right. Lots of moves happening, which is great. All good, all great businesses. So yeah. Anyone else want to share what CRM they're using? Zizwe,
I've recently started using Asset Map, but just based on this conversation that we've had, I think the first part is what I still need to do so that I have that process in place. Yeah. And I am actually going to be attending with Francois Dudoit. He's got an AI session coming in. Maybe I would be able to just look into the others and then see which one would actually fit in terms of the cash flow management. Yeah. But for me, what's important is to actually put in place the first part that we've just discussed in terms of the process, because it might be a futile exercise if I don't have the process in place and then start using the tech, because I'll be wandering around.
Cool. Okay, perfect. So we'll have a session Thursday. Hopefully you can join us on that. Where I do use ChatGPT, I've got to write a lot of articles. So I write like once a week for like an online newspaper, and then once a month. And it's sometimes I kind of normally come in on a Sunday, my mind's a little bit free, and I try and think of stuff that happened in the week and write something about it. But it's quite difficult some days because, it depends what you did the night before. If you had too many lamb chops or too many whiskies with one of my neighbors, it's sometimes difficult. So I've started using ChatGPT, and what I'll do is, like during the week, if I think of something and I think like this is really interesting and it kind of relates to a lot of what clients deal with, I just make notes on my phone, and then often when I come in on a Sunday, I've got a clear idea of what I want to talk about, and I'll go into ChatGPT and I'll say, write a 400-word article on, and then I'll write, and sometimes I'll write like 500 words, and then I push go, and the next thing it produces this article, which when I first, it felt a bit dirty at first because like I was cribbing, but I've kind of made peace with that. Because what I've done is I've fed a lot of my past articles into my ChatGPT, so it kind of understands how Dirk writes and kind of the language I use and that. So it's absolutely amazing what it can produce. Then I'll go into that, and then I'll still make changes to that. But you know, that's something. If you do find that you're writing stuff, or you need to be writing stuff, is just put down a whole lot of thoughts, like, and then just push go and see what happens. It really is amazing. Again, the risk I'm very aware of is that it can make me really stupid, because then I don't use my brain. But in a lot of cases, I'm writing an article, but I'm kind of not spacing it. I'm just writing. I forget about punctuation. I'm not too worried about that. And when I feed it in, what it produces is often then really nice. And you can go in and say, make it a bit less serious, or make it, you know, and it does that. So, I mean, for me, where I'm having to produce a lot of content, I find that's working really well as well, and the ideas in that article are still unique to me. So, you know, I have still created that. Shannon.
Using the paid or the free version of ChatGPT?
No, I'm on the lowest paid version now. What I've done is I've also downloaded DeepSeek, and it's amazing. Put the same info into both and see what they produce. In fact, the easiest is I start off and I just said, tell me who Dirk Groeneveld, who lives in St. Francis Bay, is a financial planner, tell me about him. I put that into both of them, and you just see what they come up with. It's quite amazing. So it's progressing all the time. I think it's going to continue to progress.
Are they pretty consistent in terms of the information?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes quite the opposite. So that's why I say it's quite interesting. Okay, we've got into the AI side. Anyone want to share? Ben, you've already shared how we're using it, and I'm only taking that. Anyone else? I think Brian's dropped off. Anyone from Brian's team? Cherise, maybe you want to share how you're using it in your business?
Yeah, so basically what Brian said, and then we also use Calendly for meeting bookings. I think he might have left that one off. And we use an image creator for the front page of plans, just to make a little bit more personalized to the client. So after we've obviously met with the client and we understand what they want out of life and what's important to them, for example, if they retired and they like going camping annually or quarterly or whatever, we'll create an image online of a retired couple sitting in front of a bonfire and looking over the water or something like that, just to make it a little bit more personalized. Or if a client, one of them are getting married in November, so we'll create a picture where it's wedding themed related, just to show them we focused on what's happening for you right now, and we're focusing on what's important to you. So I think that's the only items that Brian didn't mention. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm going to share with you very quickly my ChatGPT, just to show you how amazing this is. So this is what I typed in. I typed in write a 400-word article, and I just randomly a whole lot of stuff, and next thing up pops is story. Okay, so then I can use that. Then I said create 2 pics reflecting the example above, the 2 examples, and it came up with that. So it really is amazing what it can do. And I think I really like that idea, Cherise. And we've done it in the past where, and I think I showed you before, where we were the one client, in fact, was the client who's now with a bad back, who's retiring now, where in his original plan, he wanted to go camping. And, you know, we got a snippet of a camper and we put his name on the number plates. And I mean, that took a bit of work then, but I mean, you can, with AI, you can create that so quickly now. And I think the more we personalize stuff, so this is I was very dubious of AI when it came out, but I mean, I'm seeing there's more and more, because it's all about the client experience at the end of the day. I mean, I wrote an article that got published yesterday, or this morning actually, was that article on, and one of the examples, because it's a client in St. Francis, and I actually phoned her and I said, listen, I want to use your story, but you know, because it's a small community, some people might guess who it's about. And I said, let's just read it. Are you comfortable with it? And she came back and she was very happy. But it's amazing how quickly you can produce something. And I think clients want to, you know, they want to read real life stories. They want to see real life. And also, the more you can personalize it, like about those pictures, if you make it more about them, you know, there's no one who doesn't want to see more about themselves. So I think that's great. Anyone else want to ask any questions or share anything around systems or AI?
Has anyone automated their process? So has the automated CRM where you can move it from one point to another and the system automatically then sends emails or uploads documents for signature, etc.
Cherise, I see you nodding.
So we've automated our process in terms of, so on Xplan, you can create cases or threads depending on what paid package you are. And we've got threads with underlying tasks. And based on the process we follow, we've built that onto Xplan. And each task can have the person who's responsible for it loaded. So if I've completed my task, and for example, Aiden's the next person that needs to do the next step, she will get the next notification. And I know with Xplan, you can have emails sent from the system. We don't do it. It's on I think it's on like the most expensive package. I can't remember what it's called. But on our version, we don't send bulk emails from the system at all. We will send it personally from Outlook, and we don't need to send bulk emails except for our monthly newsletter. But otherwise, it's a very personalized process. So the system reminds us of what the task is, and it jumps from one person to another, but it doesn't automatically send emails. So it just depends on how far you want to go with automation. If you want to just have your process automated and it tells the next person what they need to do, then yes, that's fine. But it can go further in terms of sending emails from the system, but then you have to have that planned out very well, because if it sends an email from the system and it's not done properly, obviously people are going to get emails with errors. So, which isn't very professional. So it's something you'll have to spend a lot of time on almost perfecting it. Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure, we kind of are doing that at the moment. So just to give context, we're busy looking at building kind of our own CRM. It's like a low code platform that we're making use of. And essentially, when you put someone's details and name in, it can then pre-populate forms as well as automatically send out consent and disclosure letters for signature, etc. So that's the point we're working towards. I was just wondering if anyone else is going into that space, or I'm familiar with tasks and all of that, but I mean more automated. I just feel like that's where everything's going, and we're really trying to make inroads towards that.
Yeah, Dylan, great that you're doing that. I'm just 30 years of history. I'm going to tell you, trying to invent the wheel. There's just like Zoho does that for us. I mean, like Ben says, there are so many on the basic Zoho. There are so many things that we use. So, you know, we send out when in the process when clients are joining us, we send out the stuff as and when it's meant to go out. So we've got a link that clients get, and then they can enter their personal details. I think Cherise make a very strong point there. You know, at the risk of becoming very efficient, you can look very unprofessional as well. If an email goes out, if the guy's name, my brother-in-law, his name's Chris, we call him Tommy. Like when they got married, like everyone was saying, who the hell's Chris? He's been known as Tommy since he was 13. So if the system sends out an email to Chris, not Tommy, which can happen, you could find that it really takes the wind out of your sails in the relationship that you built, because the client will think, okay, so this is actually automated. It's not personal. So I understand. Yeah, we use it for newsletters. That's the bulk emailing that we send out. But generally there's always some sort of human intervention. Because even if you go through the process, we use Zoho Sign as well, so which is like DocuSign. The beauty is that there's a complete link for compliance purposes and everything. It's really simple. We became the servicing agent on the contract the other day of the Momentum. There were 4 directors and a life assured, so it had to go to all these people, including myself. And it just like we set up the process, and it just jumped from inbox to inbox to inbox, and ended back, in the system, and straight out to your Mutual Wealth or Momentum, whoever. And then, so I think there's a lot that you can automate, but I think you've got to be careful with the personal touch, especially if you're a business that is trying to be really personal. But yeah, I think that's kind of a double-edged sword. We just got to be careful there.
I think it's more just around getting the mundane tasks out, still having staff operating, but optimizing their time to spend in the right places.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I want to try build a robot, but more just make my support staff's life a bit easier and make our process a bit quicker. That's kind of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Take a
So if I can add there.
Sorry, Cherise.
Sorry. How we try to minimize time spent on compliance in that regard is we've got our disclosure notice, we've got our SLA, and there's a third one. Oh, the consent form. Those 3 documents Brian sends off via Quickly Sign, because that's still in the prospect process. He deals with that until almost the end. And then while he sends it on Quickly Sign, he doesn't meet with the client to explain each document. He has actually recorded videos of him explaining it, just 1 minute recordings, and then he puts that in an email. And instead of jumping on a call every time explaining it, he just sends those links. It's YouTube, unlisted videos, there we go. And the client just gets, or the prospect gets that. And if they're happy with what they're seeing, they just go ahead and sign. So we've saved time there instead of saving time through an automated process of sending the document where there could be errors, but we're quite comfortable with the videos that save us time. And that's what he's decided. Yeah, which is perfectly fine. Yeah. So if we do make changes to the document, it's a quick, you might have to re-record a video or so, but that's still 1 minute. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think, the use of video like that is also, because it is more personal than just the email. Yeah. Anybody else want to add?
Does anyone use Loom? Does anyone use Loom?
I've used it once or twice in the past, but it's
a weird use that I found for it was when clients kept postponing meetings and they were struggling to find time to review something. I would make a Loom and explain, let's say, a few different risk policies as an example, and then send them a link of the Loom I made to their WhatsApp, and then they'd watch it and give me a response. Like, it's had a really good hit rate. So yeah, if you guys if you're stuck getting a client over the line and they're not finding time to go over something, just make a quick video on Loom and explain it to them. It tends to work quite well in my experience.
Yeah, I used it a bit through COVID, just to send out like on a Friday to clients, just, when all the stuff was going down, markets are down 30% in that. But it is quite intimidating videoing yourself. I mean, yeah. Shannon, you got your hand up.
No, I just want to share something where it doesn't work for me. On Elite Wealth, each client gets online secure access to their portfolio where they can go in at any point in time and get an updated portfolio schedule themselves without us having to send it out. All clients have access, not a single client uses it. They all wait for the review meeting to get their portfolio schedules. It's just so weird that here they have the facility to access this info and nobody uses it.
Yeah, I know that's I mean, you don't want clients doing that, but some do. I mean, obviously we deal a lot with Old Mutual Wealth, and we had a client who has stuck with Old Mutual Wealth, Old Mutual International, and then PCS, Private Client Securities, with share portfolio. And it's an actual mess because they're 3 different logons. And you know, 9 times out of 10, they get their passwords mixed up, or they're using the wrong password on the wrong site, and then they get locked out. So, yeah, I mean, at the risk, with the intention of being efficient, you know, you can cause havoc as well, because then people end up hating the whole system. You know, so it's, I think having a one place to log on like what you've got makes a lot of sense.
You think that clients will go for it, but yet they don't. So we're doing a lot of work in the back end, make sure everything is up to date, and clients still don't use it.
Just to jump still into answer your question, I think often as well, like some of the simplest automations are the best, you know, like as Dirk was talking about, you know, in people's names. So we, in our CRM, we have a preferred name field, and then like running simple automation to make sure that those are always updated and those are used. So our newsletter, for example, will always go to the preferred name, not to the legal name, for example. So like that's a simple automation, which is often very good. But I mean, I do have a friend as well who they use Calendly, for example, to book their for their meeting bookings. And what they've run automations, for example, when they've booked a discovery meeting or whatever they want to call their initial engagement, when the client books that meeting, automatically then a task gets sent to the admin, and they have to start, you know, drawing, say, like a shoot and prepare this document and this document. And then it'll automatically book out time in the advisor's diary to start planning, you know, or do the planning for that meeting. So it's blocking time in their diaries already. So you don't just suddenly rock up on, you know, Thursday morning, go, oh, flip, I've got this, you know, meeting, you know, later, I have to start doing it. You know, it's already been planned out and booked out that way. So those kind of automations, I think, like you say, in the back end are probably where the most value comes from, to making sure that tasks are automatically done. For example, they use Fathom, and it's got an action list afterwards. That action list gets sent straight to the admin person, so that at least then they've got the tasks to run with straight after the meeting. So the advisor can then have back-to-back meetings, and the tasks are already starting to be worked on, as opposed to before you'd have to wait till the end of the day to start giving the tasks to the admin team or whatever. So I think those are in the back end. There are a lot of fun time-saving automations that could be run. But again, it's important that you got to have a process, because then those will tie into your process. You got to have a process first, I think, is the foundation.
Thanks, Ben. Anyone else want to add anything? Since we're talking about people making changes, Ben's going to be leaving us. So he's at a really good offer, which speaks to a lot of his strengths. So I want to put you on the spot, Ben, but if you want to maybe just share with the group. Ben's been part of this group for a very long time. It's actually where we met. So yeah, come full circle.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Dirk. I'm going to be moving to Propulsion, and I'm going to be joining Francois there. Yeah, so I'm going to be assisting him and helping him with running his business, and a lot of this AI and automation that we're talking about. Yeah, so that's where I'm going to be on 1st of April. I'm going to be moving to Propulsion.
Right, Ben. I'm sure I know we will stay in contact. We'll still be needing your help with a lot of stuff that you've done within the business. So yeah, thanks for that. And hopefully you remain part of this group as well. If you don't, I'll have words with Francois.
I'll send you my new email address.
Okay. All right, guys. Anything else? Great. All right. Well, listen, guys. Thanks everyone who shared. Thank you for keeping your cameras on. As I said last time, I think it's just polite. So I will continue to not enforce it, but encourage it. And then what I'm going to do, I'll put on a WhatsApp group sometimes for next Thursday morning, where what I'll do is I'll take you through the client care process of onboarding, and then I'll review as well. So anyone who wants to attend that, please join in. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dirk.
Have a great week and month ahead, and we'll see you on the WhatsApp group.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys.
Thanks, Dirk.
Bye bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Cheers.